Hey everybody, hope everybody's doing well. Today we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is an interesting subject. It's somewhat new, though it's been around for a couple decades, but new in terms of it's becoming more prominent. Why is that? A number of reasons why emotional intelligence has gained traction, our awareness, is because there's a realization that in order to be effective as a leader or manager, that you have to be emotionally intelligent. We'll talk about and define what emotionally intelligent means. But let's talk about that statement I made, but it's important. Is it important? Is it vital? Is it one of those essential traits that a person needs to have to be successful? I think that when we talk about important and essential, we use those words quite a bit. Is it the most essential trait that you're going to need in order to be successful? No. And if we were to ask what are the most essential types of traits that a person needs to have in order to be a manager, and same with leader, it often comes down to the ability to dream the right dream and be determined to achieve it. In fact, of all the traits that a manager or leader has, one continues to rise to the top. So no matter the intelligence you have, no matter the capabilities you have, the traits that you have to be determined to achieve whatever that goal you have within you is. Even organizations, they may have the right mix of people, assets, other types of resources, but if they don't put them to use, if they don't have the guts to move forward and achieve what you want to achieve, no matter what kind of assets or talents you have, it really comes down to the determination to achieve it. In fact, when we look back at people who have become successful, either in politics or sports or business, it is usually those that have a sense of either I'm not going to fail, or if I do, and when I do fail, I'm going to get right back up. It's an amazing trait or characteristic to have, far more than emotional intelligence. I think in some ways emotional intelligence comes down to more of a managerial trait rather than a leadership trait. Of course, many would disagree with that. Let's start with the definition. What is emotional intelligence? I'll read you something from Harvard. The lady's name is Lauren Landry. She said, the technical skills that help secure your first promotion may not guarantee your next. If you're in a leadership role, there's an emotional element you must consider. It's what helps you successfully coach teams, manage stress, deliver feedback, and collaborate with others. She then says that 71% of employers value emotional intelligence more than technical skills when evaluating candidates. I'm not so sure that I would be part of that 71%. I think if you have a person, especially in a non-leadership, non-managerial capacity, and they are so far advanced technically, that's the type of person that's going to be hired, I think, today. When you move up to management and leadership, you get work done more through other people and by other people than by yourself. So it stands to reason that you should have some ability to communicate with and to relate to other people. Because of so much of what we do in relation to communication deals with our emotions, then it stands to reason that we should at least be aware of emotional intelligence and how to raise our emotional intelligence score, EI. Yes, there's a score that you can get from that. There's tests that you can take that will tell you what your emotional intelligence is. That said, even if you have low emotional intelligence, in other words, you don't connect well with others, or you let your emotions become more a part of who you are and how you manage than maybe you should, I still think you can be successful. It may be more difficult as you try to get work done through other people, so emotions are a factor. I just don't think they're the factor or even the most important factor of a manager. We know what emotion is, right? Emotion is an outward manifestation of who you are. It's actually what we can see about another person. It's not necessarily what you think or what you believe, it's what you show. That's the difference with emotional intelligence. It's what people can see about you. When you hear somebody say, oh, they're so emotional, that means that they can see how a person relates to a person or a thing or a factor or an aspect. They can see their reaction. The reaction is part of their emotion. So the traits of emotional intelligence relate to what people can see from you and how intelligent you are in controlling. Yes, that's the key word. All of us have some type of emotion. The issue is, can we control it? We're going to get into the traits of emotional intelligence and the traits of emotions that you should pay attention to. But the key point is that it's very difficult to be a human being without having some type of emotion. That's what makes us different than our counterparts, the computer. Yes, as we move from human resources to inhuman resources, where we move from using humans to accomplish a task to increasingly relying upon robots and artificial intelligence, then we see that emotion is becoming less valued in the workplace. I think that that is greatly overstated. The difference between us and them is that we have emotions, and those emotions allow us to connect to other people. And by and through connecting to other people, we can create relationships, and it is those relationships that help us in the workplace. So emotions are a valued part of not only being human, but of being a person who can be more successful in the workplace. If you have the right types of emotions, if you exhibit the right types of emotions, and you inhibit the wrong types of emotions. So, emotions are good, they're valued, they can greatly enhance your success within the workplace. But it's the right type of emotions that you need to promote, and it's the wrong type of emotions that you have to control. So controlling emotions is much more important, really, than the emotional expressiveness. So what are the types of emotions that we believe should be included in some type of emotional intelligence score that we have in the workplace? There's 4, some would say there's 5, but we'll concentrate on 4. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. For those who've seen anything I've done before, we take these theories and cases that people have studied, and we try to make them a bit more efficient, a bit more direct. I think some of these traits relate to the others. I don't think we need 5, even 4. I'll try to convince you that it really comes down to just a couple. If not, it gives us something to talk about. That's what we do in education. We give our points of view. Hopefully, through this discussion at the end, we have the best course of action. So emotional intelligence says that we need to be aware of what our emotions are, and then we have to manage those types of emotions. We have to be socially aware, too. I guess there's a difference between self and socially aware. We'll talk about that. And then we have to have relationship management. One of my favorite words now, if it's not networking, it's relationships. We'll talk more about that, but I think that if there is a trait that we need to concentrate upon, not exclusive of others, but concentrate upon, is building relationships. We'll talk about that. Let's start with self-awareness. As we see here, self-awareness is apparently the most essential trait. It's the ability to read your own emotions and gauge your moods accurately so you know how you're affecting others. Self-awareness, whether emotional or not, means that you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, your advantages and disadvantages. Whether it's related to emotions or not, really has little benefit or disadvantage to you. It's just being aware of who you are. It's having an understanding of what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then it's spending your time enhancing what you're good at and trying to mask what you're not. Anytime we use this word self, I think today, it causes some kind of visceral reaction by at least some or many. Oh, it's one of those new age things, get to know yourself and love yourself. And so in some ways, we have lessened the importance of becoming a bit more aware of who we are, where we want to go, and what we want to be. Who we are and where we want to be. And in order to know where you want to be, you have to know who you are. Strategic planning. Strategic planning is about here we are, here we want to go, and the strategic plan itself is how we're going to get there. Is that self-awareness? I guess in some ways the new age thinking that we have of today in the last few years is, yeah, that's self-awareness. I tend to avoid terms that start with self. It seems to me a little bit too much of a ploy or a trick. A bit too much of come talk to me and I'll sort you out. Instead, I think we just need to be aware of who and what we are. And I'll liken it to if you go to a certain part of town or a rough area of town, they often say you have to be aware of your surroundings. I think it's the same trait. Just like you have to be aware of your surroundings if you're not in the best part of town, then you have to be aware of yourself, what you're good at, what you're not good at, where you want to go, where you want to be. And then you have to work towards that. Many of you know that I carry this around wherever I go. And it is about what I want to do in life and who I want to become at the end. I often tell my kids and everyone else, be someone good and do something great. That's a philosophy that comes from being aware. Being self-aware, of course, it's just that I don't like the word self as much as I don't like the word self-management. It's like when we use these adjectives, be an effective manager, a good manager, be a visionary manager, be a leader, that we can't just say leader anymore. We have to have an adjective in front of it. I'm really understanding why an active leader as opposed to a leader isn't active. And there's maybe hundreds of theories now of leadership, and we have to put it before a leader. I often ask somebody, is there a difference between being a leader and being a motivating leader? I'm not so sure. One of the big terms today is servant leader. Can you be a leader if you're not a servant leader? I think it's awful hard to do that. Can you be a leader without being a participatory leader? I'm not so sure that you can be that either. Be a leader without being an authoritative leader? That's part of being a leader. There's degrees, of course, but I would hope that all leaders are in some ways authoritative. Doesn't mean that they have to be controlling and authoritative. So some of these adjectives that we use, I don't think are needed. Is there a difference between self-management and management? I don't really think so. But according to emotion intelligence, it's the ability to control your emotions and act with honesty and integrity in reliable and adaptive ways. Well, who doesn't want to act honestly, and with integrity? I don't know anybody, really anybody, who doesn't want to. Doesn't mean they are, but they certainly want to act that way. And if they don't act that way, they want everybody else to act that way towards them. If you're a liar, you don't like being lied to. Doesn't mean you're not going to lie to other people. You just don't like being lied to. So the first two, self-awareness and self-management, it really comes down to know who you are and where you want to go. It's in relation to your emotions because emotions can be damaging. If you have a temper, that's an emotion. If you're selfish and as a result of being selfish, you take all the credit and don't display any of the credit to anyone else, then that is an emotional aspect that can be damaging. If you have a very negative attitude that manifests itself in your emotion, that can be damaging as well. Emotions can be damaging to relationships. They can be damaging to your future. So yes, we have to be aware of our emotions, and we have to, in some ways, control. The word I would change from management is control. We have to control the most destructive emotions, and we have to promote the most beneficial. Empathy is an emotion. Do we need to self-manage or self-control our empathy? Not necessarily. If you're a basically decent and honest person, then controlling your emotions is less of a factor. Interesting, isn't it? I find that when you're basically not a decent and honorable person, then you have to spend much more effort trying to control those emotions that you have. I think because the emotions aren't necessarily positive or good. I use this word decent and honorable quite a bit. I've written books. The latest one is about being decent and honorable as a people, and you can create this great country. And the more that we can become this kind of decent and honorable person, the less important controlling our emotions are. Because any type of emotion that we display isn't necessarily going to be real or authentic or even brave, some of the words that we often hear today, but it is going to be honest and delivered with a sense of integrity. And it's going to be coming from a person who's really decent and honorable. How do you become decent and honorable? You're unbelievably kind. That's one. Second is you tell the truth. It's almost impossible to have any type of interaction positively with a person if you don't tell the truth. So first, be unbelievably kind. Second, tell the truth. Third, do what's right. If you do what's right, you really never have to worry about the repercussions because you've done the right thing. And what's the right thing? The right thing is that which benefits human nature, human society. Not yourself, not your family, not your friends, but human nature. If it advances the interests of humans, then you've done the right thing. And lastly, always look for the good. Always look for the good along the road of life. If you follow those four aspects, you become a decent and honorable person. Emotions aren't going to affect you negatively as much if you become that decent person. So don't start, I think, with trying to control your emotions or even knowing what your emotions are. Start with being a decent and honorable person. Everything else falls from there. One more. So if we are aware of who we are, and then we try to control those aspects that maybe not to our greatest benefit, it allows us to lastly have a sense of relationship with people that we work with. As a manager, as a leader, I think relationships are more essential than emotional intelligence. Relationships come from being a decent, honorable person. And when you develop relationships, you have bonds between people. And those bonds over time will be catastrophically important in you trying to accomplish something of merit and value in your life. Rarely can a person accomplish it on their own. They need other people along the way to help guide them and also shepherd them in a way that is going to allow them to accomplish their goals in not only a timely manner, but in a manner that is consistent with what they want to do and who they want to be. So, emotional intelligence is about being more aware of who you are and then controlling those aspects that you wish you didn't have. We all have them. And by doing so, you'll be able to develop relationships with people. Most importantly, though, emotional intelligence and many of these other new age kind of theories really start with working to become a decent and honorable person. A person who is unbelievably kind, who tells the truth, who in every action that they do does what's right. And lastly, no matter what happens in their life, they always look for the good along the road they travel. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the day.